Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.
Hello and welcome to Nirmal Bang, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hiral Dahatia. We have with us Mr. Pankaj Mittal, COO, Mr. GN Gopa, CFO, and Mr. Kunal Malani, Head Strategy and M&A at Motherson Sumi, joining in. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. It's a pleasure having you, and it's great to speak to you after so long as well. Uh, Mr. Gopa, let me take my first question with you. Firstly, majority of the businesses, in fact, forget businesses as well, economies across the globe have seen an impact with regards to where COVID goes. And no one really was able to ascertain as to how deep this impact will be, how much damage will it cause to businesses, to the economy, to the lifestyle and healthcare as well. And now, if you go to see, we are pretty much in the unlocking phase across economies. How have things been post the phased unlocking, at least with regards to where Motherson Sumi is concerned?
Thanks, Hiral. I think, first of all, yes, you are absolutely right. The quarter one, large part of April and May, outside of China, Korea had a lockdown. Or what is relevant is the safety, well-being of the people is most important. Of course, Motherson had a advantage that we had a operation. We have large operations in China, which suffered the lockdown or this pandemic in the last quarter post January. There was an extended lockdown, so we had a experience of how to open up the plants, how the things will change as soon as the lockdowns or the economic activity begins. So what we were trying to use this time of the lockdown, or when the economic activity came to disruption suddenly, we used this time to build our processes. How would we restart? How would we, people will come in? How would we get the people? So we were trying to make sure that we built that. We also ensured that the greenfield projects where we had uh, hiccups or the higher startup cost in the last year, we are able to make sure that the teams are in place. We built the processes. We work closely with the customer how we can simplify the processes. And most importantly, from a finance point of view, we were looking at building the liquidity. We wanted to make sure that there will be enough of a liquidity when the economic activity rebegins. We there also had some advantage because 1920 was our last year of the 5-year plan 2020, and we had set up Project Victory. Our debt levels were at the lowest level in the last 10, 11 quarters. We generated highest level of cash inflows. In fact, we paid the highest dividend payout for 1920 in the financial year 1920 itself. And we ensured that we have enough of undrawn limits, and you can see from our presentation that we have kept the undrawn limits and the cash liquidity of over 10,000 crores, both in in March as well as in June. Uh, Definitely, in the month of June, we started opening up. So there was huge working with our people. And another important aspect, which I would also like to highlight, that our HR did a very good job during this period. They ensured that they were in touch with the people. Uh, we take care of the people both emotionally or financially, whatever, so that the people are comforted. That is the most important thing, because at the end of the day, plants are run by the people. So as soon as we started opening in June, we saw that there was a good response from our people. They were very courageous, walked down into the factory. In fact, you would have also learned that during the lockdown period, there was a need from a customer who was supporting government uh, for uh,
Ventilators.
ventilators assembly. Sorry about that. So a part of assembly of ventilator was done by us. So that also ensured that our people, our maintenance people, they were all keeping all plants upkeep. And we have seen since June opening, good demand coming from the customers, good feedback coming from the customers.
Right. So, a very valid point that you've made over here as well, Mr. Boba, with regards to the, support that you've got as well from the clients, from the employees across. But taking the current scenario into consideration, Mr. Mittal, let me come to you. How has the capacity utilization panned out from where the lockdown began to this unlocking phase? Where do we stand currently?
Well, as we reported after our quarterly results, more than 84% of our plants were running at more than 50% capacity utilization.
Hmm.
And this is considering that we generally don't want our plants to be running at 100%. So when the plants are going beyond 80, 85%, we are on an expansion path to take care of the future requirements of the customers. And this is a period like end of July when in Europe especially there are summer shutdowns and also in some other parts of the world. So we do see that month on month and as we move to Q2 and then Q3, we are citing better demand coming from the various markets.
Absolutely, and that's the trend that we have been witnessing from OEMs as well, because the auto sales numbers that did trickle in for the month of July have been encouraging, and if this trend continues, we would see that up move that could continue. And with this, when do you think we could return back to normalcy, Mr. Mittal, at least with regards to where the COVID problem goes, as well as if you talk about the auto sector as a whole as well? There have been turbulent times with regards to 2018 as well as 19. When do we think we could be back to normalcy according to you?
See, when we are reading various reports, now the latest ones are suggesting that probably Q4 would be very close to that period, at least the pre-COVID era, in terms of the global volumes. And that's the directional thing which is happening today, barring unforeseen circumstances. And so when we look at the global markets, the triads, that's US, Europe, and Japan markets are also seeing a higher growth than the overall growth rate in the world. So it's a heartening thing when you see that the developed markets are coming back at a good pace. And even in India, we see that there has been an improvement month on month. And despite certain hiccups, everybody and all the governments, while there may be some sporadic lockdowns in different parts of the country, but then there has been a support to ensure that the businesses run and we can continue our operations all around.
Right. Taking all of this into consideration, Kunal, let me come to you. Last couple of years, we have seen really strong growth with regards to Motherson Sumi, and the 5-year plans that we've always seen have really worked well for the company. Now, we are seeing a reorganization that's going to come in for Motherson Sumi. Firstly, if you could just help us understand why is it that we are undergoing this restructuring? What is the reason for the same?
Maybe to answer that, let me take you to the past. Right? Motherson Sumi was formed as a JV between Sehgal family, the Motherson side, and Sumitomo back in the 80s. Right? This was a wiring harness joint venture at that stage. Okay, it got listed in '93. Subsequently, as it went more global, it expanded into other product lines. And then in 2008, 2009 is when a largest acquisition was being done, which was the mirrors business, which is now called SMR, is when we were truly becoming global at that stage, right? That was a 500 million plus top line business, and the whole group's turnover at that time was also pretty much similar. It is at that stage that it was decided that let's create a separate venture offshore, which is owned 51-49 between the listed entity MSSL and Sehgal family's holding company, which was SAMIL, because Sumitomo was not very keen on increasing exposure in a non-wiring harness business. So that was the first time when a 5149 venture was created. Uh, Subsequently, we acquired SMP, which further expanded. We grew further in the 2015 to 20 region, and hence it became even larger and larger, right? Which meant from Sumitomo's perspective, this was not the original intent of the joint venture when Motherson Sumi was formed, right? Back in 2014 is when a committee was formed at a board level to be able to see what are the different ways we could reorganize. So it's not a new thought, it's really happened in 2014. It's just that to come to a conclusion, given how quickly the business expanded, we were always running to say what's the, the right methodology in terms of getting a reorganization done. And it was, you were constantly catching up, but the business was also constantly growing, right? So the solutions kept on evolving and changing, right? And then finally now is the time, I guess, when we were all able to conclude that, this is the right alignment. So in this reorganization, you would see that the domestic wiring harness business is actually getting carved out, which was the original joint venture with Sumitomo, is getting carved out and put into a separate listed entity, right? In this journey from, the last 30 odd years, the reality is businesses which Sumitomo was not at all comfortable with actually came in at Sehgal family's holding company, SAMIL. So there were many businesses which were actually incubated in there. There are some, 17, 18 joint ventures that exist in there across multiple product portfolios, right? Which is the second leg which we are bringing in by merging SAMIL into the erstwhile MSSL now, after the demerger is done, right? Which implies now that all the businesses of the family, of the entire group, okay, is housed in one location, which is MSSL, right? So it meant complete alignment of interest, right? And then from a timing perspective, it was great because, we work on a 5-year plan, as you mentioned, and we're embarking on a new 5-year plan now on 2025. So it gave us a new platform from which we could grow now much more exponentially than we've been able to do on the past. So even the timing worked, frankly, very well in this particular case.
Right. So, Kunal, if you could just help us understand with this, what would be the key benefits that we could be looking at with regards to the reorganization or the restructuring, if we may call so?
So, so let's play it by different stakeholder perspective, right? If you look from Sumitomo shoes, they are getting the set of business that they are most capable of servicing, what they are most interested in. What that results in is, as the Indian market also evolves, as newer product lines and more globalization happens in India, which means more global products come into India, Sumitomo can bring in those respective technologies, can bring in those respective knowledge into India in a much more, let's say, focused way, because that's now an entity focused on the area or domain expertise of Sumitomo as such, right? Which every shareholder of Muscle will get direct access to, right? So that's one key benefit. And if you think from Sumitomo's perspective, then they get their share of the business, right? If you think now from Sehgal family's perspective, right, you will see that all the businesses that the group had incubated, right, and we were frankly always functioning as a one group concept, right? So while we had a legal structure, etc., but in reality, the business was performing as one group. Now, by actually making it one group, it just makes sure that everything becomes easier, right? The whole movement of people, movement of funds, movement of expertise, everything becomes a lot simpler and easier to do, which was complicated earlier because of just the legal structure construct that existed, right? And if you think from all the minority shareholder perspectives, right? All the minority shareholder perspective now gets aligned one on a total automotive group that exists, has got exposure now on all the non-automotive pieces of growth as well as all the other, let's say, incubated arms and newer areas of growth, whether it is aerospace, whether it is, IT, whether it's logistics and so on and so forth, right? So they get complete exposure there. If you see they get one share equivalent in the domestic wiring harness side as well, right? So it unlocks value for them, as that piece will now enhance growth given greater focus on that piece. And as the market evolves, you're seeing the BS4 moving to BS6, you'll see electrification happen, you'll see hybrids come in. All these will require newer technologies and let's say newer content to come in, right? Which they will again have direct exposure to. So if you're a retail shareholder, you owned 38% earlier, that was the share that they had in MSSL. They will now own 47% in DWH economic ownership. Because they will own 38% directly and then 33% indirectly from MSSL. Right? So their economic ownership goes up to 47%. If you look at the international business, which was 51-49, they will now own 100% of that under MSSL. And hence the economic ownership, which was earlier 19%, which was 51% of 38%, right? That's the 19% that they held economic ownership. That has moved to 27%, right? So the economic ownership on the international business will also go up, which is where majority of the growth and as well as majority of the capital has got invested, and hence is poised for greater level of growth going forward, right? Plus they get exposure to all the other businesses. Right? So in my view, if there is anyone who's kind of little bit had negative side of this, is frankly Sehgal family. They I mean, it's part of the promoter group. I'm sure that I'm hoping they're happy that I'm saying this, and they're not sad about it. But if you look at their shareholding, it's moved from an effective ownership of 36% in domestic wiring harness down to 17%.
Correct.
They owned 60% of the international business, that will be down to 50%. They owned 90% of the the new businesses or the SAMIL entities that are coming in, which will now be economic ownership will be down to 50%. The only place where economic ownership goes up is just the residual part of muscle, which was 36 will become 50. So in effect, that's how,
right.
In our view, all stakeholders should gain from this.
So absolutely, Kunal, I mean, is this right to say that the restructuring exercise that we've actually undertaken right now is going to be value accretive for all the stakeholders, may it be majority as well as minority shareholders?
Absolutely. So if you look at domestic wiring harness business and you compare now that potential stock, I don't know where it will get listed at, but if you compare from the proposition of that stock versus any other stock in the market, the reality is if someone wants to play the entire automotive domain in India, there is no other stock that offers that capability. Right? If you buy Maruti, the reality is you're getting only exposed to Maruti's portfolio. Right? If you're buying Tata Motors, then it is so and so. There is no one who has as much exposure as we do across all the segments, whether it is fast car, commercial vehicle, construction equipment, whatever be it, right? So anyone who wants to play the entire automotive domain, it's probably the numero uno stock to play it on, right?
I think the only thing that's left is to give out the final product from a Motherson Sumi sooner or later.
Yeah. So if he's part of Motherson, he'll be part of Motherson Sumi as well, right?
Yeah.
Which frankly is then the platform of growth now, right? As we embark on our 2025, and you will see some of those parts come out, when we come out with an annual report, as well as hold a conference somewhere in October, November, and you will see how our vision 2025 is looking like, right? Which in my view should be very, very exciting for.
Absolutely, that's something which we would be awaiting as well. Mr. Gauba, coming to you, what is the kind of growth proposition, according to you, that the restructuring is actually offering from here on?
Yeah, thanks. I think two parts. One, what Kunal tried to emphasize very clearly, that you have now two focus listed entities. One is focused on the domestic wiring harness with Sumitomo very clearly because the domestic market is also undergoing for a change. And the second vehicle which is there is consolidated listed entity where all the businesses outside of domestic wiring harness business now come together. Motherson growth story, if you look from 1993 when we got listed at a turnover of less than 15 crore, 14 crore or so, has grown because of content per car. We have not remained limited ourselves to the wiring harness business. We got into the mirror business. We set up a joint venture with a mirror company called Brightex, and that Brightex had become Schaeffnaker to Visio Corp. And 2009, we acquired Visio Corp globally. It was because the seeds were there. We had a joint venture in India called Brightex Motherson. Incidentally, when I joined the group in 97, that was the joint venture which had just come. And we were doing many joint ventures. There was another joint venture with a company called BTR where we were doing the module business, door trim and bumper business, which is what is called SMP or SMRC today. So therefore, what is important is there has to be a somewhere, some seed. And when we are merging these companies, SAMIL into MSSL, the story of growing content per car by component enhances. Because what had happened, as Kunal was trying to explain, 2008-9 when we took over Visio Corp, Sumitomo felt that this is one business which is getting into a global business. It was okay as long as we were doing it in India. So there was a constraint which was put on muscle balance sheet, not just in terms of financials, because Sumitomo has been great partner. They have subscribed to 25% shareholding. Two times we have gone for an in equity value. One in FCCB in 2005-06 when Segal family sold 2.5% to ensure their holding to be 25%, and to recently in 2016. But more importantly, in terms of a product range, it was becoming a limiting for MSSL to get into. That is why SAMIL was doing some of the businesses. In fact, in our presentation, what we have made for the last June quarter, we have given how the performance of SAMIL joint ventures are. But more importantly, we have given more than 85% of the joint ventures which are contributing more than 85% of the revenues. So that throws so much opportunity for the new SAMIL or new muscle to come in times to come. And also it brings entire chain into one company. So there will be more savings in terms of the transactions, in terms of the flexibility, and investors no more have to ask a question whether this will be into muscle or into SAMIL. I think this is the biggest gain coming from this. Apart from the fact that it becomes a far more simplified structure, financially it becomes a very strong structure because now SMRP BV, 100% of the cash flows will be available to this company, given that the large part of capex which had happened on the greenfield is now over. So this creates a huge opportunity for getting into more and more businesses, apart from the new verticals which Kunal already mentioned. So,
right. So that's the kind of growth proposition that we are offering as well with regards to where restructuring goes. Kunal, let me just quickly come back to you on the kind of valuations that we are looking at on the restructuring, and what is the kind of swap ratio that we are looking at?
So the valuation for us was done by PwC and KPMG. They have used multiple methods to come to the value that they did. It's also a fairness opinion on this has been provided by Bank of America and Axis Bank, Muscle Board, and Kotak Bank for SAMIL Board. So those are the set of agencies who's really looked at it and figured out what it is. Right? The swap ratio that's been concluded is 5.1. So for every share of MSSL, they will get 5. So for every share of SAMIL, 5.1 new shares of muscle will be issued. Right. Uh, but I think the part which often has got missed is the demerger part. So if you are a shareholder of Muscle, you will now have two shares. You will have one share of Muscle as is where is, nothing's changing there. And you will also have one more share of DWH, the domestic wiring harness business. And that should unlock value for reasons as we discussed earlier as well, right? Now, when you think from valuation perspective, people I'm aware have often got lost in the details around it and found it complicated and so on. But in reality, it is quite simple. Let me try and explain it. And we had put up this slide when we had announced this also on, it was slide I think 59 if I remember right, where we spoke about how anyone could compute this. See, it's a reorganization, right? It's not that it's a merger, because the merger portion of the business is like 5% of the aggregate. 95% of the business is reorganization, which means it's the same set of business that is considered on both sides, which are swapping, right? So if you think about MSSL as it stands, right, it will essentially have three components of business, right? It will have the domestic wiring harness business. It will have 51% of SMRP BV and the residual business of Muscle, right? That's the breakup of Muscle from a value perspective.
Correct.
The domestic wiring harness business in SAMIL's valuation will be 33% of it. So if you consider that domestic wiring harness business is, let's say, 15,000 crores, just as an example, right? Then the corresponding value in SAMIL will be 5,000 crores, 33% of it.
Okay.
Similarly, if you look at SMRP BV, it will be 51% in Muscle. Now, if you think SMRP BV 51% is worth 10,000 crores, right? Then in SAMIL, it is the 5149 that they own directly, right? Plus the 33% that they own indirectly through their stake in MSSL. So that's around about 66%, right? So hence that value will be around 12,000 something, right? If you now think about the residual business, and you say the residual business is, let's say, worth 15,000 again, right? Then 33% of that is what is owned by SAMIL, which is 5,000. The only new piece of valuation in some fashion that is there is of the residual business of SAMIL, which is a 2,800 crore odd business against against MSSL's existing business of close to 60,000 crores. Right? From a size perspective, it's like less than 5% odd, right? And similar would be the value construct associated with it. So every investor can technically put in their set of value of what their expectations against each of these pies are, or each of these sets of businesses are, and can compute their swaps. And because both sides are largely the same, the swap cannot be very, very different. Right? Unless you are one of the guys who doesn't believe one of the businesses or the other, right? In which case you probably are not an investor in MSSL in any case. Right? So for an existing investor, it's pretty simple. If you believe the MSSL businesses and that's why you're there as an investor, then computing the swap is very, very simple.
Correct. So with this, Kunal, do you think there could be any concerns that could be raised from the retail minority investor community?
We don't expect, and if you see how the stocks performed, I think it's in some fashion reflective of it. Are there any newer concerns that we're hearing about? Answer is no. If you see, the only concern, I guess, that was the most that we had heard at the time when the reorganization was announced is how quickly will SMRP BV and SMP in particular will be showing turnaround, which if you have seen the last quarter results, our greenfields are in the path of turning around this year for sure. And it's already improved its profitability significantly. And that movement, even if it goes just to a zero profit, zero loss situation, adds nearly 150 to 200 million on the EBITDA side. 100 and 200 million euros on the EBITDA side for MSSL. right, which will now be 100% owned by MSSL in the post-reorg situation. So personally, I don't see it being a concern. I also told you how the share of retail minorities are actually increasing in some of the core businesses. And hence, ideally, I would expect they should be fairly happy to see value get unlocked.
Right. And then with this, another positive which really works in favor of companies like Motherson Sumis with regards to what's happening with the Indian rupee as well. The kind of resilience that we are seeing on that front, what is the kind of benefit we could see on business? I will take this question with you, Mr. Goba.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question, and currencies can go either way. What is important is Motherson has never taken risk beyond the products what we do. So we have 10-12% of the business in India. More than 88-90% of the business is done outside of India.
Correct.
And we are not moving products from one currency to another, one geography to another. So we talk about currency, we talk about tariff wars. So we, in fact, another is powertrain agnostic. So we have stayed away from taking a bets, as Mr. Sehgal will normally call it. We have remained very focused on the customer, our vision being to be a globally preferred solution provider. We have gone and acquired the companies and run it there. We have gone and set up the greenfield close to the customer. So in a post-COVID situation, when people talk about local, we are already there. So while it is always good to have a stable currency, because that makes so much life easy for the finance people in taking decisions or in forecasting or those things, from a balance sheet or P&L point of view, it does not matter to us other than the translation of euro balance sheet being into muscle.
Right.
So that's really a kind of a neutral position. But yes, definitely as a country, as a economy becomes more stronger, we see a stronger rupee economy.
Absolutely. So that's something which could be helping companies like us as well. And very lastly, Mr. Mittal, so we know where we stand right now with the impact of COVID so far right now, taking into consideration the previous years where we did see somewhat of a slowdown across the sector. However, if you have to take an outlook for the next 6 to 12 months from here, I know it is difficult right now because everyone's even trying to understand as to how the next 1 month is expected to look like. And no one's really sure because nothing goes as per plan because of COVID. But right now, as per strategy, as per planning, what's the 6 to 12-month outlook looking like in terms of business?
See, for us as a global business, we see a strength month on month. And the pandemic happened first in China, and China bounced back very, very quickly. So we see a very good growth there. We saw a much better growth in Korea, which actually crossed the pre-COVID period as well. And then we are seeing, as I was mentioning earlier, that in the triad countries also, the growth rate is forecasted to be much higher. And what we hear from the forecasting agencies, as well as what our people on the ground say, that unless and until something unforeseen happens or there is a rebound which impacts the business and things like that, we see that as we move towards Q4 and beyond, the markets are strengthening and the demand for vehicles is growing. The debate would be always congestion versus contagion. And in a revised scenario in a post-COVID era, everyone wants to be more careful and want to be a private owner and want to move in their own private vehicles. So we are also seeing in India that even in the Indian market, the demand for two-wheelers is pretty strong. On the passenger car side also, we are seeing that on month, there is better requirements which are being forecasted. So that's the way we see from most of the geographies. At the moment, one geography which is not showing signs of so much of growth has been Brazil, which is not a very large market for us at the moment, but then yes, but we see that it's also a country which has been impacted with COVID quite a lot. And hopefully in the next 2-3 quarters, there also we will see these green shoots of growth.
Absolutely. I think that's the hope that everyone has from here on, across industries, across sectors as well, that the growth should continue from here on. And interestingly, passenger vehicles, two-wheelers, and tractors is something which is doing really well, at
Absolutely.
least in terms of the domestic market. CV is something which we have to wait and watch from here on as to what happens. But it was a great conversation that I've had. Thank you, Mr. Gauba. Thank you, Kunal, as well as Mr. Mittal, for joining us on the show as well. I hope you have enjoyed the conversation as well. And stay safe. And we will speak to you soon once again. And regards to Mr. Sehgal as well from our side. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.